another time I tweeted a picture and didn't realize that I actually exposed myself in the picture and tweeted that one time, but I got it deleted in under like 45 seconds. But that was a scary time for me as well.
Welcome to Log Off. Everyone has an internet story to tell, and today we're getting meme extraordinaire Bailey Carlins. Bailey is a former high school English teacher turned social media savant. He first hit my radar during the early days of the pandemic when everyone was online and no one was getting off more viral tweets than him. After holding social media roles at Sports Illustrated, the XFL, and Barstool, in 2021, he opened his own shop, Bad Brain Digital Consulting, which has done all kinds of cool stuff for clients, including Stephen A. Smith, Amazon, Chris Bosch, and Dave & Buster's. As if that's not enough, he also teaches social media marketing and memes at Marist University. This man is pure internet. Bailey, let's start this podcast the way we always do at the beginning. What is your earliest internet memory?
My earliest internet memory, well, my parents got me an email very early on. So like I remember like with probably not as much supervision as should have been offered at that time. Like I remember the AOL home screen and being able to like click through. And I just remember I wish I could tell you exactly what it was, but I vividly remember just clicking from a link to a link to a link to a link and just being absolutely fascinated at the rabbit hole that I could go down. And I think I ended up on something where I knew like I shouldn't be here. And like it was enough for me to just like also get exposure to that early on of like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on out here. And then that was like my earliest, but like my first love was Twitter. That's really what brought me into the internet world.
So those AOL days, it was before there was really search. You were just kind of finding your way around, or they had like keywords, I think.
I think so. I think I clicked spam email and just kept going and just kept pulling at that thread. And like if I had a credit, and at that point, if I had a credit card, I would have put it right in there. It's like those days of the internet where we're all a little more trusting,
Were there things you had bookmarked that you were going to regularly, or?
Yeah, a lot of games. So like I wasn't allowed to have video games growing up. Like we weren't a PlayStation or anything, Game Boy, like anything like that household. My parents were known to say, all right, yeah, go read. Like my uncle tried to buy us Game Boys for Christmas, didn't happen. So the internet became my first almost like loophole where like my parents didn't fully understand. Like it wasn't in the basement all night playing Halo like online with my friends, but it was like I could go on like funnygames.biz, I think is what it was called, and like play these like ridiculous, like the little games like Tanks and all these like other little games that were like to anyone else probably at my age even too would have been like, this is so like this isn't doing it for me, but for me it was exposure to something I wouldn't have been able to get otherwise.
Yeah, for me it was Yahoo Chess. I don't know how I like wasn't even like a chess person, but I got hooked on that.
Yeah,
could not stop. So you mentioned your propensity to read, or you were kind of forced to read, and eventually you ended up an English teacher, which makes sense. I mean, you're well read, or at least you give that vibe online. Was that always your like plan to go into teaching?
So it wasn't. So like I come from a family of teachers. My brother's a teacher, my dad's a teacher, multiple aunts and uncles teachers, and like I have like a crazy high respect, which like you'd think anyone would, but not how it works for teachers and education in general. And I think like that combined with like a lack of self-confidence in myself when I was younger, I actually didn't think about teaching because I almost like didn't think I'd be good at it because like my dad was like my superhero with it, and I was like I don't think so like I almost got turned off a little bit from it, like and when I went to college for broadcast journalism. I didn't vibe a ton with like the other broadcast journalism students. I was a little too cool for school, I think. I didn't buy into like the whole local TV like kind of thing. And I changed my major over to written journalism. And then that actually got me involved with the school newspaper, which got me involved in like my first social media like job, which was like helping with the like live tweet, basically SUNY Plattsburgh, not like a notable sports school or anything in upstate New York, but sports games. And I was working at a local newspaper, and I was like, oh, this is what it's going to be. I'm going to be a journalist. Like, this is going to be amazing. And then I was working at the local newspaper, and like, it was just kind of sad there. Great people, nice people, still talk to some of them, but like, it was a local newspaper, where like resources were depleted. The staff was really small. It was like just not great vibes there. And I just got scared again and applied to grad school for teaching and got in and just did that over the course of like 6 weeks. It kind of switched it all up.
So you followed in Dad's footsteps. I love how he's like basically a sidekick or a supporting character in your social media story.
Yeah.
You bring him into your Twitter feed. Was that something that he pursued on his own, or did you have to nudge him to get onto Twitter?
So my parents have like always been relatively early adopters of stuff. Like they were on Facebook. I'd imagine before like maybe a lot of my friends' parents were. My mom was on Twitter. Like I remember her signing up and being like, I don't know what this is. And early on, like they're relatively early adopters of internet stuff in general. And naturally, I think as I began to build like what I would consider like a Twitter audience, they retired, and like my dad had a lot of free time and like really just enjoyed like chopping it up with people. I think it fascinated my parents to see the audience levels I was reaching sometimes. Like it's just like it's I mean it's such a foreign concept, so like to them. So I think that was really interesting for them. And my dad's a really funny dude, and like he likes the attention I think that he gets on some of his stuff on social, like we all do. And I think he got a little bit of the bug. And then if he can shoot me a text and say, "Hey, throw this retweet for me or bump this up," I'm more than happy to if it brings a little bit of joy.
Yeah, he does those "Are you smarter than a fifth grader?" polls every so often.
Yep.
I would be embarrassed at my performance, but because the poll results are public, like I can see everyone else is screwing those up too.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just be embarrassed for
Fun for
society as a
social,
whole.
bad for the education system in the United States on
Exactly.
a daily basis there.
Not a great reflection.
No.
So, I mean, you ended up a teacher. How did you end up shifting gears? It was a Sports Illustrated opportunity, right?
Yeah, so I was teaching English and loved it. Like for what
Yeah.
it's worth, like I really did like it. I was teaching in a VOTEC school, so I was pushing into classes. Like there was a culinary class, and I would go in and teach like real life applicable English. So a lot of resumes, cover letters, stuff like that. But really, really enjoyed it. And I was helping run. I was doing the social media and making some graphics. I taught myself Photoshop for a blog called the Knicks Wall, which was I'm a big Knicks fan, which was a New York Knicks blog, and it was through that I started to get some exposure just to the professional world of social media. I didn't have that previously. I didn't necessarily like I knew it was people's jobs to be on social media. It's 2018, but like I definitely didn't know what it was about to become. But like didn't know that there were opportunities out there. One and two that I was qualified for them, which I still probably wasn't. But I had gotten a DM from someone on Twitter, a dude named Kenny Ducey, who's had a few different stops after Sports Illustrated. He does a lot of gambling stuff now. He basically and I were chatting via DM. He had come on our podcast for the Knicks blog, and he's like, "Oh man, we could use more people who get the internet like you at Sports Illustrated." And I was like, "Hold on, is that a real thing? Like, what are you talking about?" Blew my mind. Like, literally, I looked at my phone and like someone said that to me, and I was like, "Oh, I never like something just clicked. Like, wait, maybe I should try to do this." And Kenny reached back out. They were hiring a couple months, I want to say, later, and I was living in like near Saratoga, upstate, near like north of Albany, and I drove down to the city for an interview, and they said, "Oh, that went really great," and I was like, "Oh, amazing!" And they're like, "All right, we'll be in touch." And I drove all the way back upstate to north of Albany, and then they called and they said, "Can you come back tomorrow?" And I said, "Okay," and I drove all the way back down and did it again the next day, and I got the job. And like all I showed them, my portfolio was this social content that I had made for this pretty small, less than 10,000 follower Knicks blog on Twitter. But it's kind of showed me a core principle that I try to adhere to when I'm trying to hire people or freelancers or even like do work for different clients is it doesn't really matter if your audience is 1 or 1 million. If you're doing good quality work and there's people who recognize good quality work, it was very accessible. And I was so appreciative that it was so accessible. And I moved down to New York City like a week later, and I've been here since.
Such a great story. So what kind of stuff were you doing for them? Was it a lot of like running the social feeds? Any memorable moments that stood out to you?
So it was an interesting spot in that like great people that I worked with there. My boss, Kevin Driscoll, was a great guy. I worked alongside a guy, Dave Scipione, and the guy, Gino, who was amazing. Still keep in touch with them. But it was like definitely not what we think of now. Like it was it was scheduling a story from SI.com every 15 minutes from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. I worked Thursday through Mondays, 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. Then there was some opportunity during live windows to do like a big moment happens in a game to like make a meme of it or reaction gifs were really the move at that time. You know, throw a GIF keyboard GIF up on Twitter. But it was mostly that, and then I was feeling a little bummed and a little dissatisfied about that. And create and like I'm so annoying. Like I'd been at this job that I was unqualified for like a month, and I was like, I got to do something else. Like I got to do more. Um, and I pitched a show called Unimportant Questions was the name of it essentially. And what it was I noticed that our SITV, which was the video branch, always had celebrities coming in. Like they had Shaq in one day when I was there, and mind you, I never thought I'd see any of these people. So like it was blowing my mind every time to see these people. But none of what we were doing because the video stuff, what SITV was paywalled. So no one, I don't know how many people were watching that, but no one was seeing this on social. And I was like, we need to use these people in some way for social. So then I got to do that show, and that was fun. I taught myself how to edit video. I taught myself how to add captions to videos, and that gave me a little bit of like an extra purpose. But that was on top of my job. Like I was coming in at 10 a.m. to do that, and then working from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. still. But it got a little bit of attention. It was the first thing I ever did that got like a little bit of like nothing crazy, maybe 85, 90 likes on Twitter, but it was enough that I was like, okay, I'm doing something right here.
That's such an important like voice to be in the heads of some of these publishers, because especially during that era, they were just treating social like this is our referral traffic source.
Yeah. And like
get the links out on Facebook.
4 link clicks, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You get 10,000 comments on a Facebook post, they don't care. But if
Yeah.
you get 10,000 clicks, that's different. So that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So let's jump to the XFL, because that's when you landed on my radar. It felt like out of nowhere overnight you were in my Twitter feed daily, and I remember like finally clicking on your profile page and seeing something about the XFL. So I checked out those social accounts, and I immediately was like, this dude knows what he's doing. The content had like so much more personality than even what you'd find on NFL team accounts back then. They've gotten better, but back then they stunk. Can you talk about like how that opportunity came up and what your mindset was going into it?
So Sports Illustrated got acquired by new acquirers. I was not particularly aligned with their vision for, which is again now hilarious for me to say. I was an associate social media editor, but I was feeling myself. Was not really aligned with where things were going. I was still working 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. Thursday through Monday most of the time, which is just tough. And like I recognize some people do that their whole life, but it was hard as a young dude in the city. Like I felt like I was missing out on a lot. And I had gotten a LinkedIn message from a recruiter at the XFL. I'm not a huge WWE guy, and a lot of the attention on the XFL at this point was that. It was like people who were big WWE fans because it was Vince McMahon and it was all of this. Like it was before they even announced like players or like the jerseys or anything. It was very early. And I was like, whatever. So I answered the DM or the message on LinkedIn, was qualified whatever way, met with the guy who would end up being my boss at a coffee shop in New York City. And before getting hired, just quit my job at SI. Which again, dumb. But like quit, was like, I'm out of here. All I thought I was crushing this unimportant questions thing. I thought I was doing such good work. They were like, okay, see ya. Like no, like, oh, are you sure? No, like they're like, oh, have fun, and that hurt because I didn't expect that to happen. And then a really funny social media story, good lesson with social media is I almost didn't get the job at the XFL because they ran a background check on my social media, and the background check service that they used didn't differentiate between language used in retweets or language used in organic tweets. And I had retweeted some stuff with some vulgar language and like just word, like not necessarily bad word, like, but just stuff that I wouldn't say, that ping, ping, ping on their radar. And then I had quit this job. I had been told I got this other job already. And then my boss called me and he was like, my future boss, and he was like, we're having some issues with the background check. And then I was able to clear it up. And I was like, no, like, or it was likes, like something I liked, they thought I tweeted. I forget what the exact thing was, but good lesson there to be careful because it's always out there. And then that was a really tremendous opportunity for me. It was again, like I put myself in a weird, like I was reverse commuting from Brooklyn to Stamford. It was like 2.5 hours each way every day. So like that was brutal, but it was the first place where I felt like I would truly had some freedom to like do some fun stuff. Like, and I had a conversation with Ray Allentin is his name. He works at the Commanders now. He's a great dude. And I had a conversation with him that I think kind of changed my entire life. And like from then, and it was the day of the first games. And I said, I know we've been doing what we're doing and stuff's been good, but I think I need you to just like let me go. Like you need to just like let me fire stuff off. I'm not going to be able to run everything by you, or we're going to miss out. Someone's going to beat us to this. People are excited about this. Someone's going to beat us to our own content, and that's like the worst thing. It's a problem a lot of the leagues deal with. So he said, okay, basically gave me full permission to. I gave him full permission to yell at me later if I messed up, and the result of that was just like I tweeted like I was me, but from and even maybe an edgier version of me or like a cooler version of me from this account. And like you said, like no one was really doing that on the league level yet. Some teams were good, like in some sports leagues, but no one at the league level was, making the score's 6-9 LOL joke. Nice. Like no one was doing anything even close to that. I think a combination of it fitting the XFL because it was supposed to be this edgy kind of product that was related to, Vince McMahon's like baby, combined with just a rise in good social media and people not necessarily doing a lot of good social media, but recognizing when it was good, like being like, oh, who's behind this account? Like, oh, this is so funny. And I also just unashamedly took a lot of credit for it and would get in the mentions and say, that was me, thanks. And that helped me a lot as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of brands would prefer their social media managers or social teams just like take a back seat and give the illusion that the brand itself is communicating to the public, which makes no sense to me.
No.
If anything, they should be showcasing the fact that they hired these fun people.
Yeah.
You've always done a really good job of owning that, and it's paid off for you. Is that something that like you do with actual intention, or are you just like wired that way?
It hurt me more than it helped me for a long time, for what it's worth. It like there were relationships at different stops, like the XFL, where people were like, they didn't vibe a ton with me doing that. But I watched people leave jobs and have nothing to show for it. Like like sure, maybe on their resume or their portfolio, but no social clout, which is a terrible word, but like to show for it. And I was like, I just left SI without a single thing to vouch for my hard work for almost 2 years. I'm not going to do that here. Like I'm just going to, and then when stuff really started blowing up, people earnestly started asking, oh, who's running this account? Whoever this admin is crushing it. This editor's doing a great job. And I'm like, I'm just going to say it's me because it was, you know what I mean? And so there was definitely intention at that. And even now, years later, we're 4 years, almost 3 years almost removed from, oh my God, almost 4 years removed from the end of the XFL. That is still a common intro for me. Is like, I love what you did at the XFL. What's your business do? Like, which is, I think, a testament to it's kind of crazy when it was a handful of weeks during a pretty crazy time,
Yeah, it was like a rocket ship. I mean, it was straight up and then straight down. That iteration of the XFL anyway ended really abruptly, despite all the great work you were doing. Can you talk us through like?
And it was over.
Yeah, can you talk about like how it went down and how you landed your next opportunity?
Yeah. So I all my vacation time got deposited into my account in the morning, and I was like, that's weird. That only happens usually when you're getting fired or when and I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to get fired. And I texted my boss and he's like, yeah, no, me too. And then like his boss, and he's like, oh yeah, me too. And then like players. And I was like, oh, this is done. Like, damn. But like, we thought maybe, this was a time of like, what's the word I'm forgetting, which is great that I'm forgetting it, but like the temporary layoff, furloughs and many things like that. So like I, thought it was maybe something like that. And then we got on a Zoom call and it was a pre-recorded message from what I gathered, and it fired everyone. They're like, oh, see you later. And it was like an email gone, Slack gone, which I understand you need to do for certain reasons, but like everything gone. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have a job. I haven't not had a job since I was 15 years old. So I was like, and like panicking, but to backtrack just like 2 hours, when I got all that vacation money deposited in, I made a meme about getting fired because I'm like, if I get fired, I'm gonna joke about it and get myself a little bit of attention, maybe some sympathy here. Like I've seen so many media layoffs where people, get on Twitter and they're like, "Oh, wow, I got laid off." Like it's good. It's what you got to do. So like I did that. And again, as a guy who worked at Sports Illustrated for a while, I survived so many layoffs, and I just kind of saw what it could do to people and how you could position yourself better coming out of that. Made a meme. It was like the meme from The Office where it's like "fire guy," and I put "fired" and Photoshop my face on, and said that I was really proud of the work I did at the XFL, but it was over, and if anyone was interested in working with me or continuing what we were doing, I would love to. And I got and put my email on there, and I got 60 emails, and I was like, oh my god, so that really stressful, I'm not going to have a job, was really only a couple hours. I'm like, something in here has got to be worth me doing. And then the first email I got was from a dude, Gaz, at Barstool Sports, where I was familiar, and I had done a little bit of work with a guy, PFT Commenter, who's half of the Pardon My Take podcast. He had tried out for an XFL team. We got along pretty well. So he referred my name, I guess, and was like, this dude crushed XFL socials. A couple other people recommended it. That was the first interview and the last interview I took. I interviewed with probably 40 people over the course of 2 weeks, which was exhausting. I mean, awesome, but exhausting. And basically what Barstool was offering me was, and I liked their CEO, who actually just left a couple days ago, is officially leaving yesterday, but she reached out and she's like, we'd love to have you here. And I'm like, it felt like, wow, this is a place that actually cares about social media, really cares about it, recognizes how important it is. And that was cool. And they told me I basically could do whatever I wanted, to 100 million followers. And that's an opportunity I was not going to pass up on.
So what's it like working at Barstool, where you can't just hang back and fire off tweets as the brand account? The personality is everything. Their internal drama isn't just brushed under the rug. It's treated like entertainment, and you actually become part of the product to an extent.
Yeah. Which I was in for. Yeah. I was down. It was COVID. I had no human interaction. They were offering COVID tests a couple times a week, and you could come into the office, which was awesome. Now couldn't pay me enough to go into an office, but at that time, really desperate for human interaction, and doing that was really cool. And I was a fan of the company, and I was a fan of the content. Not all of it. You never know how much, if anything, is anywhere until you're inside of it. You realize how much is being created. But it was a really cool place to work. In terms of live feedback from audience, not getting that more anywhere else. You send a tweet that you think is funny and it's not, you're gonna know right away. Right away, people are gonna tell you. So I think it really sharpened my skills and built in a little, knocked me down a peg, which was good and needed. And then also allowed me to hone my skills a little bit more in terms of okay, I really got to be good. At the XFL, by the end, I was slapping out anything, and people were like, "This is amazing," because it was just cool to be cool. You know what I mean? But yeah. I think I was able to really sharpen my skills there in terms of work environment. I really liked it. It was definitely, I don't know that there's another place like that. I think other places try. I think the only place that's ever been even semi-similar is a Howard Stern kind of situation. But you are content. For example, I tweeted a picture of me drinking a beer at the airport on a work trip, and when I arrived in Dallas, where I was for a work trip, I had about 10,000 Twitter notifications, and I was getting blown up by the CEO and the president and my boss and other people, and it became a big thing. And then I got sent home, and when I got home, I had to film about what happened, and I was like, this is a lot. This is kind of crazy. I liked it still, and I liked the attention. But it was a crazy place to work. I think it's a place that you can't ever truly understand unless you're there. It's way more normal than you would ever think at the same time. I'd never been somewhere where I had more meetings and there was more strategy and there was more conceptualization of, okay, what are we trying to build here? What are we working on? And from a freedom to do whatever I wanted on social standpoint, I'll never have what I had there again. And that, I'm okay with that, but it was interesting. But I mean, I loved it for what it was. I knew I didn't want to be there forever. I always knew I didn't want to be there forever, which is where a lot of people are there. But yeah.
It seems like everything there is very public. Do you have a favorite behind the scenes moment or story from your Barstool days?
Everything is so public. I would just say It was pretty surreal. Not really behind the scenes, but just like it was a really supportive place. And like
Mhm.
people, there's a lot of places where if your job is talent, like one, that's kind of crazy to begin with. You know what I mean? Like I can't
Yeah.
like who knows what that does to a human being when that's your job. But like it was a place where it was a much more even playing field for the social people
Mhm.
and for producers and for talent than a lot of the other places that I've worked at. So like talent interact like famous, really accomplished, really talented people interacting with behind the scenes people more than is normal other places. And like I think people with Barstool see like the bad side of that a lot. Like it's like, oh, attention being dragged on people who don't want, but like there's also the good side of it where it's like you're a human being still to these people. Like you're not just like there's people who work on TV shows for 10 years and the person who's the talent but never learns their name. That's just not how it works there. So I really liked um that aspect of it. And like I forged some like really real friendships with folks that I thought wouldn't look at me when I was in the office, which was pretty cool based on previous experience.
That's interesting. It's
Yeah.
cool to hear about the structure when you talk about meetings and things like that too, because I think
Yeah.
the public perception is that they're just kind of winging it in a lot of these video products and stuff, but that stuff doesn't get put together on a whim. Like
No.
there's actually people behind the scenes that are putting effort into
Why
this
in a
stuff.
lot of meetings you'll hear like, oh, we want to do what they're doing, because they
Yeah.
know that there must be a lot of work but it's fascinating. They don't know how, but they know there's a good amount of work being put into it. So that's, yeah, it was now. And it's funny to think that I was at a point where I was like, I want more meetings because I really did feel like at one point. And now, no, thank you. I'm good on meeting. I have enough meetings, but it was, yeah, it was cool to just see people who cared about social, like really cared about it and understood how important it could be. I mean, light years ahead on that.
That's great. Yeah, the
Yeah.
pandemic did that to us. We wanted meetings. We wanted to sit at tables and
Yeah, I
meet.
know,
It's
literally.
very weird.
Yeah.
So your story mirrors mine in a lot of ways, in that I was, for a long time employed directly by brands, media outlets to work on social and content, and I always had the itch to like work on a more diverse set of projects. So
Yeah.
I finally made the leap in 2020 to start Pennant Digital, which is the parent company of this podcast. We do
Yeah.
work for a lot of clients at this point. Can you talk about like what finally made you take the leap to start Bad Brain?
Yeah. So it's kind of like a two-part. One, I just felt my time was coming to an end at Barstool. Like it just felt like it wasn't going to be the place for me super long term. And if you have that feeling, it's like it kind of felt like dating, where it's like, well, if I know now, what am I pushing the inevitable for? So I started looking like a little bit. Like I just started poking around, and I hadn't like previous to then. Like I thought I'd be there for a while, not forever, but a while. And then I had a friend reach out and say, I have a really awesome consulting opportunity for you. And now, like I run a business, like I understand so much of the business side of things. Back then I had no conceptualization of anything, especially consulting. So like I hadn't been places really where consultants were incredibly valuable to me. So like I said, oh, I don't know, like I'm so busy right now. And then he's like, you should really take the call though. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm really busy. And then he was like, take the call. And I was like, all right. He's like, it's a ton of money. And I was like, what's that mean to whoever? Like that means so many things to different people. And this part-time consulting opportunity would pay me twice as much as my salary was at my job. And I was like, I'll take the call. Like, and I ended up getting that client. And I'm NDA'd on that one. I can't talk about it. But like what exactly it was running social media for a prominent business individual. And or attempting to be more prominent business individual. And like I got that, like went through like RFP'd like all these things I had never done before and like got it. And then I was like, oh my God, I have to quit my job. And sent like a bunch of texts to anyone I had ever worked with anywhere and got back some like, yeah, we'd love to work with you. Like, what does that look like? Or yeah, like how's the business going to work? And all these things that I didn't have questions that I didn't have answers to, but I realized I could actually build like a business rather than just like freelancing. Cause there's a difference. It's a thin line and it's a gray line, but like, I thought I could really build like an operational business. And yeah, I started with that opportunity I just mentioned, and I was doing some work with this company, Super Digital, who worked with some really awesome individuals like Guy Fieri and some other really fun stuff. That I was running a Guy Fieri, no context Guy Fieri page for free on Twitter, so getting to work on anything related to him was really exciting. And Chris Bosch, who was getting into the Hall of Fame that year and was writing a book, and was releasing a book rather, had already written it. So like guy who I thought was like an incredibly cool athlete, like that I never thought I'd ever be in the same room with. Huge Food Network guy, great opportunity. And then this other thing, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this business. And like the money was more than I ever thought I would ever make. And I thought at least for a month, like it was literally for a month. That's all I was guaranteed, I think, maybe two. But I just kind of went for it. And I was like, screw it, I'm just going to do it. I came up with a name and I've reached out to my dad's friend who was a lawyer and was like, how do I make a business? And he helped me out. And like, he's like, you have to make an LLC, and like did all those things. And then like a month later, it was just like, was rolling, like bought a desk. I didn't have a desk at home. And like, I look back on that time now and I'm like, I was insane. Like it was, which I think a lot of success was the successful stories, which fortunately I have been so far, who knows long term, but like start with like I didn't know better, and I'm glad I didn't know better. But like I did not know better. Like I had no idea to do any of the stuff I do now.
That stuff never happens unless you actually take the leap, though. So
Exactly.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Can you explain the Bad Brain name? Because I think that's a really interesting story.
Yeah. So I'm a big I don't know. I always had a phrase. I'm a big mental health guy, but like I'm a big depressed guy. So like and anxiety, the whole gamut. But I had a conversation with my therapist at the time. I'm trying to remember her name. Her name was Pat. I had a conversation with her, and I said something about having a bad brain, like why I've been given like such a bad brain. And she said something along the lines of like, "Oh, I've seen many bad brains. If that's what you want to call yours." Uh, I forget exactly what she said, but something along the lines of like, if that's a bad brain, like you're gonna be fine, like you're still good, you got a lot of good things going on for you, and that just really stuck with me. Not enough to remember it now, apparently, but stuck with me to the point where I just kind of always liked that. I also didn't realize there was a very famous and very large fandom punk rock band called Bad Brains. I didn't realize that at the time. I get chirped about that every once in a while, telling me that I stole the name. I did not know. I promise at the time I would not have done it. But yeah, that was it was just like, and I was really pumping out a lot of mental health content, and talking a lot about my struggles. I talk less about it now, which is really just the result of like I'm in a much better place, which is awesome. Like I kind of talk, I in social in general, I just approach things as they come, and like it's just a little bit less of a focus now, not internally, but externally. But yeah, that's where that name comes from, and I just thought it was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool name. I forget my other options, but I do like it.
It does sound cool on top of having personal meaning. So
which
it's
is probably why it's a great band name that I
exactly.
stole too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for as long as I've known you or followed you, your pinned tweet has been that 2019 note about checking yourself into hospital for severe anxiety and depression. Can you explain like why you think it's important to use your growing platform to project that? Because it's a really good, I don't know if you call it an essay or a blog.
Thank you.
I reread it today, and yeah, it really hit close to home. So
I should, because I haven't in a while, and it's important to kind of like look back and like reflect upon where you come from, where you've been. I just wanted to like check too. I just looked down quick, like it's got 22,000 link clicks, which is pretty awesome. So like knowing that, whether it was to yell at me and try to find a weakness, which I get on Twitter sometimes, or whether it was like someone just earnestly trying to kind of like look for, like 22,000 is a lot of people, that'll go fill Madison Square Garden. If I was able to have an impact on, 1/100th of that many people, I'd be happy. But yeah, I went through a real rough time when I was still teaching. It was right before I moved to the city. I went through basically a mental breakdown, went through a bad breakup. I didn't have a mental breakdown because of the breakup, but it kind of brought on a lot of things I had really been pushing down for a really long time. And like as a really little kid, like I had like gone to like the school counselor, and I just cried a lot when I was little. Like it wasn't now in the year 2024, my parents would probably like have acted differently, but like I was just like kind of an emotional little kid. Nothing too crazy or horrific like you can hear about. But it just got worse progressively as I was getting older, but I have an awesome life, and I did well in school, and I had good jobs, and I had good friends and girlfriends, and enjoyed myself, and always was doing pretty well until I wasn't. And then it just like came crashing down in this insane week where I was like, I didn't know it was possible to like feel like this, which was really scary. And I was looking online, and I was like, who's talking about this? And big strides in the last 6 years, even online. I'm not taking credit, like I'm the first guy to do this, but like there, outside of Gary Goldman, the stand-up comedian, I'm not sure if you're familiar, who talks a lot about
Yep.
his struggle with depression. Very, very, very few people were talking about it. And it was just not a common. It was not a common thing. Kevin Love, like there were like
Yeah.
tiny little bits and pieces out there, but like not in a way, not in what I felt was like a relatable, approachable way. And I know it's a horrible thing to say because everything Kevin Love does is like incredible, but sometimes I think it takes someone who's a little more like you and a little closer to you and going through similar struggles, um, to really understand. And I thought, man, like maybe I could help a couple people. Like if I go out there and say, I'm like, because I never realized the power in just hearing someone else say that they're also feeling that way. But like they also have a family and a wife and they're a cool job in these things, but they're also feeling the way I am. I'm like, oh, okay, you could float both. Like it's there's a progression here. So I just figured, I'll start talking about it. I didn't do it for attention, like which is a misconception I think a lot online when people talk. They think you want sympathy. Like I get that thrown at me all the time. Oh, you want sympathy? You want people because to feel bad for you? No, not at all. I hope one person sees that and they're like, oh wow, I felt similarly, and wow, that was 4 years ago, and he's still here. That's pretty sweet, Like that's all I've really ever been shooting for with that, and it was like really good for me to write it out and share it. Like I felt like it was a huge burden lifted off me. Like I wrote things in there I wouldn't have been able to say to people one-on-one, and I know they've read it. Like I know my fiance read it when we met through Twitter, naturally. But like I know she read it, and like it's, I don't know. I just felt like I was able to normalize it in a way. It's just like super important to me to let other people know that they're feeling like a little less alone. And the feedback I've gotten on it, I still get a couple DMs a week of people either telling me that they're going to therapy for the first time and they're excited, or to ask me a question about something. I'm by no means a therapist, nor can I give advice, but sometimes you just need someone to talk to, or just talk at, if anything.
That makes a ton of sense. That relatability is super important too, because like you said, we can't hear from our heroes. I mean, we can hear from our heroes, and that helps. But like to hear like everyday people are going through the same stuff you are,
Yeah,
it's very helpful. I think the part in there that really jumped out to me, I'm paraphrasing here, but you kind of said like, no one wants to feel sad. People want to get better. It's not like they're doing it for attention, but the real struggle is just feeling like you deserve to get better.
yeah.
There's plenty of people that like when they're in a rut, they not only feel sad, but they feel like, they don't deserve to climb out of that hole. And
And you
I
feel like
think
a
what you
burden,
wrote really helps me.
like you feel like a
Yeah.
burden, like, and that was the thing. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, I don't want to, and this is not indicative of my parents at all, but like, if I don't want them to be the people holding the weight of how I'm feeling, like they're not the people I should be going to say to say like, oh, like no one wants that. You know what I mean? So like they're a resource in a way, but like which is why I'm a big advocate for therapy as well, because like pay them, it's their job. You don't got to feel bad about it. They're getting paid. They're getting paid great. Sometimes not as well as they should in a lot of places, but like depending on who you're going to. But they yeah, big advocate for that too, because like yeah, I think it's really just about like, and it seems it's so silly, it sounds so silly, and I almost get why people make fun of it and laugh at it or don't understand, because like it seems silly that someone could feel so much less alone because some random dude on the internet with 12,000 Twitter followers at the time, probably like that I had maybe 5,000 Twitter followers at the time, could make them feel so much less alone. But like I felt that way from other people, so I thought, why not give it a shot?
Yeah.
It's been, and it makes me feel better. I'm not gonna lie about that. It makes me feel good that I'm able to maybe help someone else out.
Good. That's good. I've never bought into the doing it for attention thing either, because, if someone is doing that for attention, maybe they need a little bit of attention. Like maybe
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
issue.
That's a great point that I've never thought about. Like, good, get
Yeah.
it. Like that's
Give
fine.
it to
Who's it
them.
hurting?
Yeah. Let's see if it
Yeah,
helps a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. We're all just trying, man.
That's true. It's so true. So give me it sounds like mostly, your clients come to you, so that's a good problem to have, but give me the bad brain elevator pitch. When you see someone that needs help, what are you pitching?
The it's a good one. It's really just like I just promise people that I can give them the best chance, set them up with the best chance to succeed. Can't promise virality. Growth hacking doesn't really exist anymore. Like everyone is starting in a much more even playing field. which is
Yep.
a really good thing for them if they add someone like me who knows what they're doing, who's been incredibly fortunate to build relationships with individuals at these platforms where you can get a little bit of an edge. Because I think what people forget a lot about social media is the platforms want you to be successful. You hear so much about suppression. You hear so much about, oh, I'm blacklisted, I'm shadow banned, I'm all these things. Very, very rarely is that the case. More often than not, they want you coming back and they want you to enjoy. So like having these tools to like set you up for success is a lot of fun. And my other thing that I often say is just like, and I just love this, man. Like you're not going to find someone else who enjoy. I don't. It's very hard to find someone else who
Yeah.
enjoys doing it earnestly as much as I am. And I'm either going to do it for you and we'll do great together, or I'm going to go find someone else and do it, or I'm going to do it for myself. Like I'm going to be posting. So like, is there a chance for us to do it together? Uh, and just also make people's like I'm in the business of making you look really good. Like and like
That's great.
for bringing me in, I will explain to them to minutia how exactly this stuff works, so you can take full credit for it to your bosses. I'm a consultant. I'm not trying to get an end of the year raise from you. I am not trying. You know what I mean? I'm not competing with you for attention of anyone else. Like put me off on the side, tell me what I need to do, and like make yourself look good. It's what I really earnestly try to do.
Do you prefer that approach where you kind of step in, right the ship, and then leave them in better hands, or do you like the
I do.
hands-on management?
I do. I mean, it depends where. With individuals, I like sticking around because really
Mhm.
the relationships are important. With companies, though, like it really depends, I guess. Like if I earnestly, genuinely believe they will continue to benefit from having me around, I will try to formulate some sort of tier in the package in the system where I do stick around. But I always give them a chance to just say no. Like because
Right.
it's shy. I mean, you know this as well as anyone, but like it's shocking how common it is to have conversations or like be pitching someone and you like catch on that they have like another agency with like 8 months of contract left, and you're like, I'm like, I never want to be that agency. I'm like,
Right.
cut me loose. I'll go find something else to do. I get so massively uncomfortable with the idea that they're like, oh, we're stuck with this guy. So I think that drives me to do really hard work. But I also think it establishes a level of trust early on in the relationship where they know I'm not just like making a grab for them. Like, and
Mhm.
I'm able to, I, I want to do good work. And if you don't want me around anymore, I'm just going to be so anxious whenever we meet that I know I'm not pleasing you, that it's not going to be worth it for me mentally, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I think is kind of tough in our industry is that, everyone wants to see their brand have a big social media or YouTube presence, but they aren't always able to like justify the price of the expertise and the work that goes into building that. How do you get clients to like value impressions and reach when there's not always a direct ROI like sales or, things like that?
It's hard. I do a
Yeah.
decent job, I think. I probably do as decent a job as other people do, but I think that's a lot about when I'm identifying if because the biggest thing for me that I learned is like the other side is like is it valuable for me to work with them? Like, and I
Mhm.
never thought about that. Maybe for the first year, like it was never like, oh, is this good for me? And then when you build a strong enough foundation, and you get to the point where it's like, oh, I feel good about like I can say no to something, or I can say this isn't perfect for me, or I can adjust. So it's like I try to identify clients who already know that and like
Mhm.
already just want to either be cooler or want more impressions or want like I don't work a ton in e-commerce. I don't work just I don't work a ton in e-commerce. If I am working in sales, that's where I'd rather be. But like
Right.
I not trying to drive a lot of people elsewhere or to products or to stuff just because like it's just not what I think I'm as good at.
Mhm.
And I don't like and for example, like I don't really work in paid because like I'm I'm trying I'm not trying to spend more money like of yours. You're already
Yeah.
spending it on me. So I try to identify clients. I try to set incredibly realistic expectations at the start and be like, what do you guys want? And then if they're like, well, we want this, I might be like, I'm actually maybe not like the guy for that. But I try to work a lot in just like organic, fun, brand awareness type content. And I'm fortunate now that I've done enough of it to where I can point to and say like this, yeah, like they did make money. Like maybe I wasn't the person, running the store or like doing something, but they did make money and people love attention, man. And like if you can get people attention,
They do.
that's currency for certain folks.
That's so important as a young company too, to like actually set criteria for your clients
Yeah.
instead of just reaching out. The temptation is just to reach out to anyone who'll give you the time of day. But
Yeah.
sounds like you got that figured out. So
And
that's
I had
good.
a couple of those for sure in the
Yeah.
beginning, especially, or that were maybe big name individuals or
Mhm.
were like notable companies, but like it just wasn't worth it. And like that's like I had a chance early on, and I won't get into details, but like I had a chance early on to like work with someone who was like who I really loved, like a celebrity who I really loved, and I had a chance to work with them, and the environment of it, nothing due to them, but like it just wasn't right for me. The money wasn't right. The time to money was really not right. It was frustrating. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I stepped away from that opportunity, I would have, there's no world in which I would have thought that was possible short of the person pointing a gun at me. But like, and maybe not even then, but like that was a big moment of growth for me where I realized like, cause it is work,
Yeah.
like, that was really big for me from a business standpoint.
So you're juggling a lot of client work now. Can you take us through a typical day for you at Bad Brain, or if that even exists?
Yeah, so I'll give you like my best shot. So I 3 times a week I'm working with an operations expert right now. His name's Andrew. He's great, and like essentially his role within my business currently is like to try to help me legitimize a lot of things. And like because I have an employee now, and like I was flying by the seat of my pants on a lot of stuff, but then like I don't want to pull someone else into that madness. It was fine and it worked for me. It was controlled chaos, but like need a little bit more regimen. So like he's been working on that with me, and also like bookkeeping and like these things that as I start like bookkeeping gets a lot harder once you start paying other people.
Yeah.
Like that all of a
Especially
sudden, yeah,
state income taxes and all that kind of stuff. You
exactly.
have to
Like I
all
don't
of a
want to go to
sudden take
jail,
that break.
like that's pretty much top tier for importance for me. So I meet with him 3 times a week at 7:30 in the morning.
Hmm.
So we meet at 7:30. We meet for like 30 minutes to an hour. I'm working right now with TV show, a daily TV show on FanDuel, the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams.
Oh,
So
nice.
a morning meeting for that show. Then that can take anywhere from 0 to 10 minutes to an hour. Then a little bit of time for myself, usually like a half hour or so, to just like get my bearings a little bit in the morning, because I'm not sleep mode on those first two, but like it's before like real work, like other work, like that's dedicated to them. I don't touch anything else in that time. Then that show comes on. My obligations for that show changed over time, but like it's really, I'm just like a guy who helps out there where it's needed now. I fill the gap. It's another thing I'll do with my business is like if a social media editor leaves and they just desperately need someone with a high level of confidence that they can just jump right in, like I do that on occasion. It's not
Nice.
the most ideal scenario in the world because it's a lot of work, but FanDuel, great company, great people, happy to do it. So then that show runs for a bit. Miscellaneous meetings over the course of a couple hours. Stuff, whether it's meeting with Randy, who is my employee, or hopping on a call to discuss a different podcast, or just hopping on a weekly to pitch social ideas, or if someone just tries to grab some of my time, a little bit of that for the next couple hours. Then 3 days a week I work with Stephen A. Smith, and we have a podcast. So we have the production meeting, which is about 45 minutes to an hour. The actual record itself is anywhere between 50 minutes and 2 hours. Then it goes into the show ends. During the show, I'm taking notes. I'm writing segment titles. I'm writing the title of the show, and I'm making the thumbnail based on what's going on. From there, I send those over to get everything approved, make sure everything's kosher, then edit all the social clips for the show and the segments for the show, premiere the show on YouTube, live chat on the show, and then just monitoring, seeing how things are doing, adjusting if needed. Like I don't do a ton of live adjustments on YouTube stuff. Getting all the segments up, titling all the segments, publishing those, monitoring how stuff is doing. It's usually we're at like 7:30 at this point probably, and then catching up on anything else, and then like smattering throughout the day of like this post has to go up now, this post has to go up, help me out with this deck, can you give me some social ideas throughout as well. So a fair
That's
amount.
yeah, that's a lot. That's
Yeah.
that's a packed day. And it sounds like you're trying to do less on weekends at this point. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so a little bit less naturally, like similar to like where I said like I want to set realistic, like work with clients who were similarly aligned. Like I'm just not taking on a ton of work with people who like to work on the weekends. Like it's I'm not live tweeting football or basketball or something else. Like I'm not trying to get a client who wants me to tweet about the Olympics. Like I'm just not necessarily pursuing those things right now. And yeah, to give myself a little bit more freedom on the weekends. Football season, you're all like, I work in sports. Like I'm always going to be tapped in, try to hit on a meme if something starts going. And I'm also a sports fan, but working less in sports allows me to be a sports fan. I'm a little bit more as well, because never thought I'd be able to get burnt out on that. But like you couldn't pay me enough sometimes to watch a Thursday night football game now.
Well, they're all terrible. I can't
Yeah,
remember the last good one.
every week for years. Trust me, I've watched all of them. Yeah.
Let's get into the Stephen A stuff, because this is
Yeah.
fascinating to me. I think he's probably my favorite media personality at this point, which is funny because he wasn't my cup of tea when he first came on. He slowly won me over, and now he's just such an incredible showman. He's just the best.
Absolutely.
So how did that opportunity come up?
Yeah, so via referral, which I was really fortunate for, and then a quick conversation with him, and we had a chat and got along pretty well right away. It was one of the most surreal moments of my entire life, was hearing his voice on the other end of a phone call that was calling me. And basically, he was like, "Cool, can you start tomorrow morning?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." Um, yeah, and it just started right away. I think it's been great so far. I hope to work with him for a long time. I mean, like, there's a lot going on in everyone's world always. You never know. But like, I really hope to continue working with him for a long time. I've been working with him for about a year now, and he's a great guy in every way. He's a great boss. He's nice. He's considerate. I'm fortunate to spend a ton of time with him, traveling, going to things. He generously allowed, like, well, my fiance accompanies me, and she's gotten to know him, and I've gotten to know a lot about him, and just like, there's no one in the world better at their job than he is. There's just not. And he makes my job pretty easy most of the time.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I called him a showman, but for the amount he's quote unquote on, it becomes harder to call that an act. Is he
Everywhere.
really like that,
I love
high
the word.
energy all the time?
Yeah, he's yeah. I mean, he is who he is. Like, he is who he is, which I think why he's so good at it, because like, you can't fake like the level of just energy. Like, I think you'd burn out. He would have burned out way before I ever came onto his radar. And his show on YouTube, the Stephen A. Smith Show, is doing exceptionally. Just passed over 500,000 subscribers, which is amazing, and like 9 months of work, and it's a testament to his hard work. Like, the guy works a whole nother job and just shows up and does this and grinds and researches and knows what he's talking about. And yeah, it's pretty. I have learned such an incredibly tremendous amount from his work ethic that, like, I did not know existed. And being able to, yeah, he's incredible. And like, very fortunately, like I remember, it's always like really interesting, like, when you're working with individuals, like, if you're even able to tell people that you're working with them, or like how it works. And in our first conversation, I was like, "Is it cool if I post a picture of us? Like, can I get a picture and post a picture?" And he's like, "Hey, if it'll help you, absolutely. If it'll help your business, it'll help you out, for sure." And that's not normal, and
Yeah,
that is anecdotal for him, for sure.
that's awesome. Yeah, the
Yeah.
trajectory, the YouTube channel going from 0 to 500K that quickly is awesome, and a
Pretty
testament
awesome.
to the fact
Yeah.
you guys are doing it right too. I mean, there's no games being played. Like, the
No,
thumbnails are beautiful. Like, he's obviously tackling important subjects, and
of
he
course.
says things that are provocative, but it seems like he actually believes them. So that's good.
For sure. Yeah, he's a,
Um,
he's a real dude. And I think too, like, a large part of that too is like, it is, and like, YouTube's hard. Like, YouTube's really hard.
mhm.
You could have a billion followers elsewhere, and it does not mean anything for your YouTube channel. So like, that, learning YouTube more has humbled me in ways that are really valuable, but like, forced some of my best work ever, I think, out of me, where like, I can't lean on a lot of the other stuff I've always leaned on. Can't lean on myself sharing it, like, which has always been a little bump for me when I'm working with clients. So like, a lot of that, and like, truly having to measure against yourself and grind and consistency, and watch any video from any guy who's like, how to be successful on YouTube, and it's consistency. It's I've definitely learned a lot through that.
And that's all self-owned, right? Like, was that part of his conversation with you early on? He wanted to have something that was his own.
Yes. Yeah. That was an early conversation. He's very public about that. Like, on the show, it's his. He owns it. It's his studio. He talks about what he wants on there. And I think you feel that in the show. Like, I think you feel that big time in the show. Like, it feels like something. that he really enjoys doing. And like that's not that he doesn't. I mean, he enjoys everything he does. Like guys, I mean, he's a star, but it is fun to. It's just I just can't believe I'm part of it. Like honestly, like that applies to pretty much essentially everything in my entire life, but especially that. Like it's still incredibly surreal to me, and I think he knows that, and I try to tell him that, try to let him know, like, this is sick, man, like, thank you so much. Like anytime I'm anywhere, like I'd never been to a Cowboy, I'm a Cowboys fan, which is funny because his whole thing is being the Cowboys. But like I'd never been to a Cowboys game before, and like I got to do that, and I was like, thank you so much, like this is incredible. And he's like, yeah, no sweat. And like it's just how lucky am I, you know? Like it's crazy.
Yeah, he shouts you out on the air too. Does that ever get old when he talks about his social
Nope.
media guy Bailey?
No, I mean it's the coolest thing of all time, and he.
Yeah.
I had one recently where like he was joking about, not joking, but like talking about my fiance being too good looking for me, and oh, what seeing her, and he's like, oh, I saw her, I saw him. I was like, what's going on here? And like,
I can't explain the girl he's got. I mean, his brother getting married. I mean, you talk about a brother that's overachieving. I'm like, shit.
like I said, like, you know, like I have my dad's like coworkers, my dad's friends, being like, this is so crazy. And like all of our weird lives get normalized when you work on cool things. Like everything gets normalized. Like, but not sure that well. Like I don't know that one won't always be like the coolest thing of all time. Like just even being recognized by a guy who's like maybe the greatest of all time at what he's done, you know? Like, yeah.
You can meet your heroes and it's not a disaster. That's good to hear. Have you taken any life lessons from him or made any career adjustments based on his advice?
Just the hard work, seeing what hard work actually is, and like seeing what a true, genuine commitment and like what it takes to be great. And I don't know that I'll ever be great, but like what I certainly know what it takes now, and like not necessarily like the sacrifice you need to make or anything. He's gotten all like, but the just really truly, it's that like what hard work is, and like what true, genuine, true, genuine commitment to your craft looks like, and how you embody it, and you see a thread and you keep pulling, you see a gap and you shoot it, and you just like you can't, like, no brakes, all gas, no brakes, all the time, which is how I was already kind of living. But it's good. It's nice to like I it's nice to work with someone else like that, because I always feel like I was dragging people along, and now I'm like on the other side of it. I'm like, "Ooh, is this how I'm making other people feel?" But no.
Well, it's paying off for you. I mean, you have a ton of recognizable names on your client list. You feel free to list them out if you want. But my question is, do you have any behind the scenes bad brain stories listeners might enjoy from dealing with all these kind of public figures?
Just like it's just how like I just love how normal people are. Like it's people just want to be liked, and people want to be seen, and people want to be recognized. Like the most famous person I've ever met feels that way. The least famous person who wants to be the most famous person feels that way too. So I think like the most valuable nothing that crazy. I mean, just like, yeah, nothing like that crazy. I'd say never meet your heroes is really true sometimes and really untrue other times. But like I've definitely had some of those moments where I'm like, damn, like that's a real bummer. That person's an asshole. You know, like that's a real bummer for me, to the point where like I almost don't even like want to work with individuals at time, because it's just almost not worth like like the individualized accountability that you do and should accept when you are saying, hey, I'm gonna make you whatever, fill in the blank, you know what I mean, like, or I'm gonna get you more popular. Like the responsibility you accept with that is one like I'd almost defer on. But when you get to work with someone like who's truly great, I'm always gonna take the chance on it.
Yeah, you mentioned working with brands over people. How different is your approach when it comes to like dealing with those two different factions?
So like I love working with a company with a solid structure where I'm just like there to help. Like that's kind of my dream a lot of the time. Like rather than being the sole agency guy, everything. I can do that and I can be that and I will and I do. But like I really like being an extra set of hands and like my favorite role often that I play in companies is I get to be an intermediary between a more junior person who's thinking and acting a lot like I was at Sports Illustrated, the XFL, and their boss who maybe doesn't have the greatest understanding in the world of social media. And that young person is too scared to bring what is probably a really good or funny or awesome idea to their boss, because you can only ask your boss so many questions. And you don't want to seem dumb because you don't want to like, you don't want them to say, well, why are you asking me this? You don't want to lose your confidence. So anytime I can just show up in the middle of that and be a champion for that person and say, let's go present this together. And like, you want, like, if you think me saying it's my idea will help, I'm happy to, but we should say, like, it should be yours, or even bringing one of my own ideas to them and saying, yeah, let's like go do this. Like, and just being that champion for like a younger person is like my favorite thing. And I get to do a lot of that in established companies when I'm the guy for like individuals. It's just different because like I'm 24/7. I'm the resource. I'm the expert. I'm never questioning myself. I'm coming in, confident and like everything like that. But that's like, I just like that role a lot, and like not enough to go do it in one place. But like, I like it. I like teaching, I think it's really like kind of just like a type of teaching.
Do you have a dream client? Like if you were to snap your fingers and you're able to get your hands on someone's social media feeds immediately?
Stephen A would have been the guy, which is crazy.
Okay.
But which is wild. But like,
yeah.
And I think about that every day. Trying to think. I'd like to do something formal with the Knicks. That would be cool as a really big Knicks fan. And like, that would be a fun full circle moment for me. Like as I kind of got my start in a very casual level with Knicks stuff, like I'd like to probably do something like that. Very dangerous. Don't meet your heroes territory there, but like something with the team, maybe,
Your
like
hero, James Dolan.
Yeah, my guy. Yeah.
Do you, all right, let's go on record. Do you have a Knicks prediction for this year and maybe next year, since they're kind of in flux right now?
Yeah, so I think this year, I predicted they'd win 51 games this year. They're on pace for 48 halfway through the year, so I'm in decent shape already. I was absolutely devastated by the RJ Barrett Emmanuel quickly trade. It gutted me. I almost drove off the road. I was getting calls from people because I'm a big RJ Barrett fan. I was getting calls like someone died. I was like, what's going on? I was driving through New York City on my way to see Wicked with my fiance, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm getting calls from people I worked at that blog with, like being like, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I thought, so I'm just now getting over that. Like, but like, I'm still watching every Raptors game. So I'm struggling a bit. But I think the Knicks will, I think they're going to lose in the second round again. I think they'll win a playoff series, lose in the second round but maybe not. So like at some point whether it's this year, if they go on a run, or next year, I think they make a conference finals either this year or next year. If I had to guess, it's next year, but I do think they're going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. They're going to, like, a lot of teams have been making those runs, a little bit Cinderella runs more recently. The Warriors are slipping. LeBron's still LeBron, but the Lakers are a disaster. Like, the Celtics are scary but beatable. The Sixers, you never know with health. Like, I think they could sneak in. I just like think it's time. And who's more due? Like no one's more due than they are, and like it's got to happen eventually. Like I've seen the Red Sox do it. We've seen the Cubs do it, and like we're getting into that. Like we're getting into that territory with the Knicks. Yeah.
You judging by your Twitter feed, you're not a big OG believer. It seems like.
So it's like it's holdover from the RJ trade. Like I will always resent him, even if I try not to. But like. It's mostly because I'm spiteful because I publicly said I was upset about the trade, and everyone called me an idiot and a moron, which like may be fair, but like because I was being very emotional, but like went off on me, and like I think RJ Barrett's having a pretty good. RJ and Quickly look pretty good since they've been on the Raptors, and I understand, and I think Twitter's a really interesting. Knicks Twitter is a really interesting place. I really like it there. They're welcoming to me. They brought me in, but like it's where I got my start. But like. If you side with the other side, it's like this avalanche of just getting like yelled at, and it's like really brutal. So like I see why so many people side on the other side. You know what I mean? Like I think there were more people in the shadows that were agreeing with me. But I love what I've seen from him defensively. I was sitting 11 rows behind the basket the other day, and I watched him miss a wide open corner three that would have tied the game. I was told he's a corner three expert. He had made three before that, but it wasn't my favorite thing to see. But I hope I'm wrong. I will always root against myself, my own being right, if it means the team that I root for being good. But like as a Knicks, Mets, Cowboys fan, it's just a tough trio, and you're just used to your team making the wrong choice is what it is. I have no confidence that the Knicks are going to make the right trade, or the Mets are going to make the right signing, or the Cowboys are going to not fire their coach after 3 disgraceful exits from the playoffs.
Well, you have the stability of Mike McCarthy still on the sideline next year, so that'll be fine, right?
No, it's massive. Exactly what everyone was looking for there. Yeah.
Let's talk more about your Twitter feed, because I feel like every day I'm either seeing you go viral with something on Twitter, or like there's a screenshot that shows up on my Instagram feed that's a Bailey tweet. Can you talk a little bit about what that drive is and how you still have it to try to think of something funny with mass appeal for basically everything happening online all the time? Because you're a gunner, man. You're shooting your shot.
Oh yeah. One above all else, the attention. Like it's like I
I'm
am
glad
so
you admit it.
dependent on the attention that I get on Twitter. I really am. Like if it was gone, it would be fine. Like I'd survive. I'd miss a lot of people. Like I'd miss seeing your stuff. It's not like we're talking every day, but I'd miss it. So, and I have a lot of people like that. But really, it's just like I like the attention, and like I also recognize that the better I can do, it's an extra just like good thing for my business. Like I will hire someone who is better at Twitter, like who does well on their personal account. If it's down to them and someone who doesn't, like if it's like, and I know that I run into that on occasion. I think like I do a lot of testing on my own, almost like, oh, will this work? How will this land? Will people like this? And like, it's also like I just do it. Like I genuinely think I sometimes will just like post and not even like it's such a. I have a thought, I tweet it. Like it's just become such a thing that like very rarely am I like, oh, this is gonna bang, like, or this is gonna do, like, it happens, but like I had a Bob Barker joke I made recently when he died, and I said he got as close to $1 without going over, and like I'm like that's a funny joke. I'm like that's a good joke, and like I knew that would do decently, but most of the time, which is indicative of Twitter, it's like the stupidest, like dumbest, like afterthought. That's the thing that like is the stuff that goes crazy. But also too, I really was against the For You page thing from Elon when that whole thing happened, and like it's been helping me tremendously. Like very clearly, I've gotten put into some bucket where like they're showing my tweets to a lot of people. Like in the last month, I have like 100 million impressions. I've never come close to that on Twitter, and like that's how like that's crazy. So I get what's going on there a little bit more now.
I know it's blasphemy to say, but I actually do like the For You page at this point because it's serving me stuff that I'm actually interested in.
Yeah, I'm finally seeing less murders, which is awesome.
Yeah, less murders. Elon's not at the top of it every time.
Yeah, I haven't seen any decapitations in the last, like a few weeks, which is nice. But it seems like it's figuring itself out. I mean, it's a great idea and concept, but like it seems like it's figuring itself out a little bit more now. And I actually find myself sometimes like scrolling the following and no one's saying anything. I'm like, all right, I'll pop over to this other one. Yeah, but I also think they made the following feed worse. So like because there used to be a little more structure there, I think. But yeah.
There's people whose tweets I really like that I feel like I just don't see anymore. So I'll go to their page and they're still tweeting. It's not like they just stopped. It's kind of depressing.
Who knows though? You miss a couple of them and then decide you don't want to see it anymore, or you're scrolling looking for something else. I think is what happens sometimes too. Definitely happens with TikTok.
That's why you got to serve up all bangers. You got to get all that engagement. Does Bailey have a favorite Bailey tweet?
I have a lot. I'm trying to think.
I mean, if I'm going to throw my nomination in there, I love the string of "God forbid men have hobbies."
That's a good one, and that's one where like the fact that I said like I'm just going to tweet this and see how many times it can go viral, and it's like 4 times eclipsed 100,000 likes is very fun. Like to me, that's funny, and it's like almost showing that I'm an expert in like a really funny way, like that I like kind of knew. Those I'm a fan of.
Your non-followers don't realize you're doing a shtick there because it's funny every time.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm trying to remember. I had it with my first like tweet that went like mega viral was I tweeted like, what fruit do you think you could throw the farthest? I feel like I could absolutely gun an avocado. And like it was my first viral tweet, and like Chrissy Teigen chimed in, and like that was peak like Chrissy Teigen on Twitter when she was like Miss Social Media, and like she chimed in and it got all this attention, and like they talked about it on like Howard Stern and on these and Pat McAfee show, and like all these places were like talking about it. I was like, oh my god, it was the first time like that had really happened for me. So that one holds a special place in my heart. I would say probably that one. And it was like I tweeted it literally on the way back from the supermarket after buying an avocado. Like it was not this well thought out, well structured thing at all.
Isn't it funny? Like that's how all the bangers come. Like you sit there and like agonize over the phrasing, and it never works. But if you just like whip something out, it
almost all the time. Which I mean, you're a man who's you've put your fair share of bangers out there. You get it.
One of my favorite Baileyisms is the not so humble brag,
Yeah.
like when you drop like that you wear a Rolex
Yeah.
just to get people riled up, and it works almost every single time.
Yeah. I think that came from like I was actually really excited that I got myself a nice watch, and it was like
Yeah.
a cool thing. And then like it was my peak like depressed guy era where like it balanced it out really well, like.
Yeah.
And now like when I like now it is funny, but like it's I was talking to my fiance actually about it recently, and she's like, "Do you really have to do that?" And I was like, "I think it's funny." And she's like, "No, it is funny." She's like, "But you're doing that also like to actually brag." I'm like, "No, it's like a humble brag." She's like, "But you are bragging." She's like, "You're bragging." I'm like, "Nah, I'm like joking." And she's like, "But I'm like, "Yeah, no, I know." But like it's just like I don't know. I think there's something relatable about it in a way, and something that's kind of funny. And like what you never see is like how many people DM me or like reach out to me in some way and say like, "Hey man, it's really great to see that like things are going well, or that you got that client, or like wow that blah blah blah." Like you're like I always like my stupidest humble brag is I have the pot filler above my stove, and like
Yeah.
I'll just tweet and like it's just fun. Like to me that's just like so funny because like I also think I am in the world of like overconsumption like of social media content where like I see some of the true braggy, cringy, like so, and maybe I'm that to some people, I recognize that, but like so over the top type things that are so funny to me that like I'm trying to do like a parody, but I also fully recognize like there's a little bit there, which is something.
Let's get into something that is brag worthy, which is you're a teacher. You're a teacher again. Tell me how that opportunity came up and what the course actually entails. Is it actually titled The History of Memes?
So this semester and last semester is the history of memes. Yeah, I pitched
Yeah.
that, which is awesome. I when I got laid off from the XFL, I memed getting fired. I had someone reach out and say, "Hey, I teach a class. I'm teaching a class next semester on sports social media. I could definitely use help in building the curriculum. I could throw you a few $100, like if you're interested." And I'm like, "Absolutely, that sounds amazing. I actually have a teaching background. They didn't know that, like, and it was like really cool." I basically helped come up with some projects that I thought would be good, some classwork, like just like some general ideas, and helped with the syllabus. I guest spoke in the class. That was really cool. First time I'd ever done that. And then hadn't really heard anything. And then I think like a couple semesters later, I heard from him, and he's like, "Why don't you just teach it?" Like they asked me to teach it again, but like, "Why don't you just teach it?" And I was like, one, I don't think I'm qualified to teach at a college. I don't know what you need. Like I have a bachelor's degree, but that's it. So like I don't know what you need to do that. He's like, "No, you're fine." And I was like, "Okay." And I just like met with the head of the department, and they were like, "Oh, great, this is amazing." And what I've learned is like, and this isn't just to Marist College or anything, but like it's hard to find really engaged adjuncts who like really care and like really dive in and like really like a lot of it's weirdly a job that some folks gravitate for to just like for gravitas, like just to be like say that they did it, or like say like I don't know, add to their resume. And like I just never viewed it that way. Like I never, it was so weird to me that someone would do that, which I get, it's fine, like whatever you want to do. But like I got the opportunity to do it, and like I just love it. Like I loved teaching English in high school, but like it's just like if I could, I mean, which I could, but like I would go do it full time tomorrow. Like I would teach 5 classes a day, all day, like all week. Like I just like love it. It's fun. I feel like I'm actually an expert, which is awesome. Like I get to speak to my own experience so often. I get to have like really cool guest speakers in, which is like so cool for the students, and like cool for me that they want to do that. And like just it's just so fun. And I have had a lot of kids tell me that it's kids is mean to say, like I always say kids, but like they're like 4 years younger than me. I'm 5 years younger than me. But like I've had a lot of former students say that like it was either their favorite class, or that they learned a lot, or they knew they wanted to work in social media because of that. And like I said, like it's such an accessible job. Anyone could do it if you're like anyone can do it if you want to try to do it. And like it's really cool to give kids the option of a really available job out of college. Like
Yeah.
so I've been able to help some kids get some internships. I have an intern starting next week who was a former student, like, and like that kind of stuff is just really cool. And I think it helps me too, because like it's just good it's so good to be around younger people. The energy on a college campus is incredible. I learned so much from them. I know it's cool a little bit more because of them, and stuff like that.
That's so great. Before we get into my stupid questions that I always ask everybody, what's next for Bailey? Do you have anything cooking that we should know about or look out for?
Nothing crazy, just like keep check out my Twitter, see my clients' tweets that I'm quietly retweeting and engage with them. That's
There you
always
go.
helpful for me.
Always the first like and retweet is always easy.
Yeah, always. Yeah, no shame there. And yeah, hopefully get to keep doing more work where like people are proud to work with me and I get to talk about it because like that's like a hurdle that I've been going through for the last few years. Like so much of the stuff I do I can't talk about because it's like me pretending to be someone else. And then like so I'm targeting more work that I could talk about, and then yeah, hopefully just showing up in more for you pages and feeds and everything, my content, and grow my business a little bit maybe. I got Randy, shout out Randy, my employee. He made a meme of me every day for a month, and that's how I found him.
That's a great story. You want to tell that story, like how he ended up working for you?
Yeah, so like he tweeted that every day. Day one trying to get hired by Bad Brain, or trying to be Bad Brain's number 2 employee. Like did it for like 46 days, I think, and I think it.
Were
I think
you weren't even hiring at this point, right?
no,
He was just making the case.
yeah. He's like, this is getting kind of sad. Like, and he was ready to stop. And then I got a client who was going to be a lot of extra work pretty suddenly. And I was like, oh my God, like, of course, in pitch calls, oh, I have that, we can do that. You know what I mean? And then you go figure it out, like if you have to.
Yep.
But like, but like I DM'd him and was like, hey, I have blah, blah, blah starting tomorrow. Can you do that? Or can I give you a call? And I called him at like 8 a.m. and I was like, can you start today? He's like, yeah. So I had him work on that one project and he did an exceptional job. He's the most dependable, incredible person I've ever worked with anywhere. And about 4 months in, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I got to just figure out how to, like, I'd be screwed without him. He does the best work I've ever seen. And like, I felt like I really found a match in myself with him in terms of work ethic and in terms of like how he works and dependability. Like a huge point for me is dependability. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. You don't even have to follow up. Like I'm going to do it. He was that way. Like, and it's just been great for him to work with. And I brought him on full time a few months ago. And yeah, he was not employed at the time that I found him, and which explains why he had time to meet me every day. And before that, he was selling or working for like a handicap van rental company in Missouri, and just kind of vibing and figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. And I hope he never has another job desperately. And my hope is to eventually really bring him in as like a partner into the business, and he knows that. So
that's great.
Found a good thing with him, and he's a young man. He just turned 26, so he's got time too.
He's got that young man energy. That's always
he
good.
does. Big time. Yeah.
Shout out Randy.
Yeah.
So we have a fun little feature on this podcast we use to kind of judge our subjects. We call it tab check.
Cool.
Bailey, right now, how many tabs do you have open on your browser of choice?
Oh, tabs. Well, I've got 2 computers. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Between 2 computers.
Nice.
Yeah, not too bad.
Is that typical? You usually higher or lower than that?
I'd say I'm usually lower than that, actually.
Nice.
I close everything out at the end of the day. So I'm pretty organized.
How do you do that?
I'm pretty organized. So like I just go find it again. But well, Twitter's always open. But like that's like my homepage. Like Twitter's like the homepage of my computer. Like so Twitter's always open, and then on my phone I always have like ESPN.com. Like so that's just kind of my homepage there. Like that's what I type in to see if I have internet. Basically, like I'm just always on there. I actually don't use the ESPN app, which is funny, and people kind of make fun of me for. But I'm like a ESPN browser user, mobile browser user. I'd say usually I'm probably at this time 7:30 still working. Yeah, like this is about normal for me. And becoming a second computer guy, not a second monitor guy, but a second computer guy has helped me a lot too. It allows me to kind of keep some stuff separate, which is nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when you open your social media apps, what are the algorithms feeding you right now?
Right now on TikTok, I'm getting a lot of content for the ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses book series, which I am reading. I think the target audience is probably 18-year-old women to 18 to 23-year-old women. It's a lot of fairies and romance and wings and such. But me and my fiance decided to read it. I decided to read it with her. She's like, "Oh, can we read this?" And then I've shredded all 5 books within the last few weeks. So a lot of that on TikTok, on Twitter, a lot of Knicks, a lot of I think you should leave everywhere always. Like I mean, which I can't even, like I can't even imagine. But like inundated with that, which is like, but I think me obviously, but also that's just the internet. Good luck avoiding it, like solely convinced the Lions are going on the run that they are because they decided to loop Tim Robinson into the mix.
Definitely. That was the boost
and
they needed for sure.
What'd you say?
And Sam Richardson. That was
Oh,
the boost they needed.
absolutely. The two funniest men on the planet. So yeah, a lot of that, and then a lot of Stephen A. Smith. Like a lot of like because my phone thinks I'm different people. So like my For You page a lot of the time is, and like it is probably horrifying to some folks I know who work in social, but like I'm just an organic user. Like I'm logged in to my accounts. Like I'm not a Sprout guy. I'm not like I just use organically like posts on everything. So my algorithms are often a little out of whack too because I have so many different things on my phone. Like I know sometimes they're like, oh, I think I'm blank, or they think I'm this, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, because you're going through and liking all your client posts, so they're just going to.
Of course, yeah. They're like, this guy loves Dave and Buster's. Like number one fan.
Well, Stephen A. I mean, he's impossible to get away from right now anyway. Like
it's pretty funny. Like when I started working with him, realizing that, like you get in the car and you hear them talking about something he said on the radio. Like you get in a cab, you go to the airport, and he's on the TV of every bar. You get on the plane, and people are watching First Take. It's a stop, and then you land, and he's calling the night game, and then I'm editing the show. So like helping edit the show. So it's pretty good luck avoiding him.
Yeah, the podcast has opened up a whole new lane too. Like he's talking about more salacious stuff that has nothing to do with sports. It's like he's just found this other corner of the internet
after a long time of being able, like it's got to be a blast. Like I've always benefited from being able to really spout off about whatever. And I think people, I mean, it's shown because the growth and the numbers, like people loved hearing it too. I think it's funny. I think sometimes it's like seeing your teacher outside of school, and but for some people, but I think it's great.
Do you have some favorite accounts you follow on social besides your client accounts?
I do. The Oklahoma City Wildlife account is really funny. That's a big favorite of mine. It's like when I love accounts that shouldn't be funny but are. Like there's no reason for that like to be good, and they'll make like the funniest meme you've ever seen about getting a fishing license. And I'm vegan. Like I don't even fish. So like that's funny. I'm a big fan of @BaileyCarlin on Twitter. I think that's a good account. No. I think You Should League Pass is a favorite, has long term been a favorite of mine.
It's a pretty good one, yeah.
Yeah. Big fan. And I'm like a For You page guy. I'm a For You page user. Like I just love seeing stuff. I love how TikTok shows me a billion different people every day, and it just shows me how funny people are and like how funny everyone out there is. Like what a privilege. We live in a time where we could see so many jokes, like, and so many different people's senses of humor. Like I think that's like the biggest blessing of all time, being alive when we are. It's like people like you just go so like you'd maybe catch a joke in a TV show at night, or like some guy would tell you a joke. Like that was the only jokes people got, like, and now we get a million every day, which I think is incredible as a consumer of comedy content.
Yeah, all we had was the same like Billy Madison lines or Chappelle Show lines.
I do miss quoting Anchorman 100 times a day, but I think we're in a better spot from a comedic standpoint than we were a handful of years ago.
Is there a corner of the internet that people might be surprised you're interested in?
Big Wikipedia guy. So like big into Wikipedia deep dives and Depths of Wiki. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that Twitter account.
Oh yeah, that's a great account.
Exceptional account. Like just a top tier, like just a classic Twitter top tier account. And the girl who runs it actually went viral recently because she was cooking a perpetual stew in a park near my apartment. So she's just like that's someone who just gets the internet. Like you're gonna start like she's incredible. Her TikTok account is great too. And I think Depths of Wiki just like embodies quarters of the internet, And I think Wikipedia community as a whole is fascinating. Like it's such a strong community most people don't know about. There's people who spend their whole life, hours and hours of their week, only editing articles about salamanders or something. And it's like I just love that. Like that, like that rocks for them. And like just book stuff. It's funny because like reading is the most offline thing ever. So like I think that's part of the reason I do love it so much. Like, I try to read like 100 books a year. Like I try to really read a ton. It's just like a huge escape for me. It's the only time I'm good at not picking my phone up. Like I'll just forget to pick my phone up for a couple hours sometimes, like literally hours, which is crazy for any of us nowadays. So like that's yeah, really just like book talk and good reads and poking around and seeing what people are having to say about books. And I just love like girly shit too, so it's fun.
What is the last thing that made you truly laugh online?
The last thing that made me truly laugh online. Um, I mean, it's been this week. People falling on ice is just
Yeah.
like has always done it for me. The next level of that is like people making fun of DeAndre Ayton for not leaving his house because there was ice, and like what something that I have loved to see is like that I think is like really smart for ESPN that they learned it early was like deciding to make quote graphics out of things that they knew would get reused as memes. Like that wasn't
Oh,
really
yeah.
a thing until like a year ago. And then I remember like the first one that I really started seeing was like Mbappe saying like I will be there no matter what. And like that just took off and it was everywhere. And then I'm starting to see ESPN post these things and I'm like they're posting that because they know people are going to like use that as a reaction meme. And then it spurned this whole like fake ones, like the Adam Silver start learning Chinese, buddy, like all these type things that are just like absolute classics now. I get a good laugh out of those like a lot of the time. And then there was one that I saw, which as a Cowboys fan was tough, but like after the Cowboys lost, there was like a picture of Dak Prescott and it just said like ass, which is just like so mean. Like it's just so mean, but it got a good chuckle out of me.
That feels like it was probably a Friday Beers or something in that sphere probably came
For
out with that
sure.
one.
Who do a great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about someone setting the standard. Almost Friday beers. Like everyone's a couple steps behind them right now. I honestly
Yeah,
do.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. I'm a big Glue Guy account too. I like that one.
Yeah, they're funny. They know what they're doing. I was fortunate that I got to work on a project with them actually, but like for their brick and mortar location, that bar that they opened, I helped work on the branding through another agency with it. One of the funniest things ever was like in a meeting, they're like, all right, like they'll forget who it was. It was a representative of them, I think, but they're like, all right, like we're open to anything, any ideas, like blah blah blah. They're like, but the only thing that's like no budge is like in the back. We need a place called the Suck Down Zone. And I was like, sure. Like, I just love that. Like, such a legit meet. Like, it was a very legit meeting, but like that was still said. Like, I just love that intersection of real life and but like knowing but like staying true to yourself too. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just love the idea of a lady in a pantsuit with a clipboard saying that sentence. It's
incredible. Oh, it was as good as it sounds.
All right, let's get into the dark side of the internet. What is your most scarring moment on the internet, if you can bring yourself to disclose it?
Yeah. So the two things. One, like that like thing that all like dads prank their kids with, where it's like you're watching the little car go and then it jumps out and scares you. It was like a classic.
Yeah.
I did that to myself somehow. Like no one's ever done that to themselves. Like I just ended up clicking on that video, not realizing what it was, and scared myself home alone after school when in like sixth grade so bad that I was in tears and I didn't know what to do. Um, and then another time I tweeted a picture and didn't realize that I actually exposed myself in the picture and tweeted that one time. But I got it deleted in under like 45 seconds. But that was a scary time for me as well.
No one got a screenshot? That's disappointing.
If they did, they haven't sent it to me yet. So they're
All
probably
right.
just waiting in the wings to cancel me one day.
Yeah, they're waiting for the perfect time.
Yeah.
How do you pry yourself away from devices or log off? Any special tactics that might help others? Sounds like reading books is a big one for you.
Reading. Outside of that, I'm terrible at it. It's the life I've signed up for. Like I pride myself on being quick to answer texts and so available. I'm like there for clients and the first guy to tweet about something, like the first meme of the Super Bowl, like all these things. Like I'm always like, so I'm not necessarily great at that, but like I'm playing the long game of that. It's a means to an end. I'm busting my ass and I'm really trying to like one day really peel it back. But part one would be like I try to use the time as valuable as possible. If I'm going to be here, I'm going to try to at least help in some way or try to make someone laugh or like chat about it. I try not to get too caught up in the negativity. I definitely do on occasion, like all of us. But yeah, reading and then like leaving your phone charger in the other room sometimes and you're not bringing your phone charger from room to room is a big thing of mine actually. I'm like I don't, if something's so desperate I could check the messages app on my computer, but like not bringing a phone charger from room to room, leaving it out there. Like I often like have my phone just left in the other room charging, which allows me a little bit of respite sometimes.
That's a good tip. I like that one.
Yeah. And again, I try. Yeah.
Where would you be without the internet?
Oh my God. I'd be teaching English in Hudson Falls, New York, probably. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
that's nearly an impossible question to answer for me because it's so ingrained into the fabric of my life that it's like so insane to even think about. Like all my favorite things are the result of that. I met my fiance on Twitter. Like I teach social media. My business is in social media. Like I feel like I am who I am. I have my sense of humor because of the internet. Like I think I've developed some of my strongest friendships because of the internet. So like I don't know. I'd be a different guy for sure. I'd be a very different guy.
Well, I won't wish it upon you, but if it were to go bye-bye tomorrow, what's the one thing you would save?
If it was to go bye-bye tomorrow, the one thing I would save would probably be something that I watch a lot because there's a lot of things that I watch a lot. Like I'm like a guy who just hops on and watches something. I would say, I guess I could get the DVD. I watched the clip of from Superbad of them singing "These Eyes" of Michael Cera. I watch that on YouTube like 3 times a week. But so that's maybe a one. But I would love to just save like a contact list from Twitter so I could try to reach out to people in some way, shape, or form. Like names of my following list, maybe, so I could try to find them elsewhere and write them a letter or something. Like I don't know what I would do, man. It would not be good. It would not be good for me.
All right, it sounds like that would be a struggle for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right. Well,
hopefully not coming.
all right. Well, I hope so. I hope not to. Thank you, Bailey, for this discussion and for your contributions to the internet, your contributions to meme culture, your contributions to aspiring Rolex wearers everywhere. This is Ryan Perry saying, log off. The internet will still be there when you get back.